How are you guys? Rashida is here and is back to have another talk about home ownership or just acquiring a land or property, right? I mean, who doesn't want to have a land or property, a house, right? But when you look at an average individual's income for the year, I mean, I'm Jamaican, so I'm talking about Jamaicans, like the average individual is just earning probably within the range of $2 to $4 million for the year. And when you look at the real estate market, properties are like 18-19 million average. So you know what that's like. The math is just not adding up, right? So one of the best way to own real estate is through a mortgage. And that's why I want to talk about the mortgage process. Why? Because I mean, it's just better that we have insight. So whenever you're going into something, you know what some of the expectations, and you can ask the right questions. You know what questions to ask. So basically, the first thing in the mortgage process is knowing if you qualify for a mortgage. And to know that, you'll have to go to a financial institution that issues mortgage and speak to a loan officer. They will then collect some documents from you, ID, TR, and pay slips, the usual, right? Do a credit check, and then they will determine, then the institution determines if you're qualified, right? If it's that you're qualified, you get what is known as a pre-approval letter. So the pre-approval letter basically states the amount you are eligible to get, meaning the amount you can afford. So for example, say you're eligible for 20 million, it will state that you can afford a 20 million property, and basically gives you an indication of what your monthly installments will be like. But what is very important as well, most times when you get the pre-approved letter, you need a deposit to accompany it, right? And most times the loan officers actually ask you if you have a deposit up front before they even go into the process of letting you know if you're qualified for a mortgage. So what is a deposit? A deposit is a percentage of the property that you will seek to acquire, right? So normally it's recommended that you need 5%. 5% if you do what? I know what you're gonna do with 5%, because there are many fees associated with the transaction of buying a property. So no, you really don't need 5%. You need within the range of 10 to 20%. And 10 to 20% of what? That's 10 to 20% of the property value. So if you haven't identified a property yet, what you can do is check out the real estate market, see the average cost of a property. If the average cost of a property is 20 million, right? And you know, you'd probably need a deposit 20%, that would be 4 million. When you have up to 20%, that means you have enough to cover the deposit and all the associated fees. And what shocks people most time is the associated fees, right? So when you have your pre-approved letter, your deposit in check, you want to start to look for a property. Well, you can do self-search. I mean, you can do house hunting, land hunting. You can look around, look on the different type of sites. You have the NHT site, Keller Williams site. You have Gorjong site. You have Remax Elite. There's a lot of real estate sites. Or you can get a real estate agent. You can get a professional in that area to help you and make your life easier. You can get a real estate agent, right? And then the next step that is highly recommended is that you get a lawyer. Now, everybody gets a lawyer depending on how they're acquiring a property, but it is recommended. And when you do get a lawyer, here's what you need to do. You need to ask your lawyer about all the fees that are associated with the transaction. So say, lawyer, tell me every fee that is associated with the transaction. Tell me every fee. Please, me don't want a surprise. You really need to ask them that, and you need to be adamant about it. It is very important that you leave no stones unturned. And then that is why you have a 20% deposit. Because that 20% deposit that you have at hand will help you to cover these fees easily, right? Because once you go into the process, you need that cash at hand up front. It will help you to cover these fees easily. The last thing you want is a surprise and have to go borrow money from friends and family, or dig up money wheresoever if you get it from, dig up emergency fund where you never plan for touch and all of them something there. So a 20% deposit and asking your lawyer about all the fees that are associated with it, associated with the transaction of acquiring a property, right? So let me do a review. Check if you're qualified. If you're qualified, you get a pre-approval letter, right? When you get the pre-approval letter, you need your deposit, 10 to 20% of the property value, to accompany that pre-approval letter. You can then go on land or house hunting. You can do a self-search or get a real estate agent, get a professional, right? And as I said, it is recommended that you get a lawyer to assist in the process of acquiring the property, and ensure to ask the lawyer what are all the fees associated with the transaction of acquiring the property. So I've covered the first steps of acquiring the property through the mortgage process, and I want you to look out for my next video, which is part 2, which will go into when you have identified a property that you want and what comes after, right? So I hope that this video was really informative and you can manage your expectations going into the process, or you have an idea of the questions that you want to ask when you go to these institutions or you're speaking to a lawyer. But that's basically the process. So if I'm missing anything, I'd love for you to state it in the comments, or if you've been through the mortgage process already, you can give us an idea of what it is like, because each one teach one. And one key thing to remember, all buyers you experience is unique. There's no one sock fit all buyers experience is unique. So each of us sharing our experience will be so awesome, as we'll all learn from each other. But again, I'm so happy to be here with my community. And to everybody who always view my videos, I am so grateful, and I couldn't be any more happy. So my Rashida Talks community, I will see you in part 2.